we kick things off with the Women's War Games match. Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Shotzi, and Becky Lynch versus Damage Control, consisting of Bayley, Asuka, Iyo Sky, and Kairi Sane, with Dakota Kai at ringside. One of the nice things that I really enjoyed is that they added the rules that if you escape the steel cage, then you forfeit the match for your entire team. So that's a really great incentive to understand why people don't run out of the cage, even though this is something that we would see throughout the match. So Becky and Bayley started off with their teams, being that they were the Iron Women of this match, having the gas tanks to go. Now, some of the dynamics was interesting because they had this Ruffles poll online where everyone could choose who would get the advantage, the faces and the heels. And of course, you know, the fans were going to choose the babyface side. And so you had this dynamic here where the baby faces are ganging up on the heel. And I could see how a lot of people were bothered by this, because usually what's better is to have the heels ganging up on the babyface and they have to make that miraculous underdog-like climb back up to victory. However, with this, you could also make the argument that it was the heels getting a taste of their own medicine. So I could see it kind of works both ways. So here's some of the noteworthy spots that took place during this match. Bianca, she actually came out with her hair wrapped up as a double ponytail, which she uses as a very cool spot. So like Bayley and Iyo Sky are grabbing Bianca by the ponytails when she's on the ropes. I forget which one of the members of Damage Control she was, doing the whole, punching, pounding away and stuff like that. And so Bianca Belair does a backflip over Bayley and Iyo, and then from there, she ends up using her ponytails that they're still holding on to and pulls them both into her and immediately, smoothly transitions this into a double suplex to them. That was really awesome. And of course, Iyo Sky, she's always got to get her War Games trash can spot in. And what that is where she, of course, goes to the top of the cage and puts the trash can over her upper body and then goes ahead and jumps onto everyone below. They did something really cool here where she throws out the chain to Dakota Kai, and Dakota Kai ends up basically snapping it onto the chain, so she pulls the garbage can up, and then that's where she does the spot. Now, this spot can be very illogical because while it visually looks stunning, at the same time, if you see someone climbing up on the cage and putting their whole upper body in a trash can and jumping off, you might as well just do what Samoa Joe does and walk away, because they're just gonna go ahead and crash and burn. But they do this spot, and you can tell Iyo Sky has a lot of fun with this spot, and the audience has a lot of fun with it because it always gets the holy crap chant with that. So yes, another dynamic thing that they did with the whole trash can deal is there's a part where they put it over Becky Lynch's upper body. Now, once again, this is a spot where I think usually you would have the heel it'd be done to the heel because it makes the heel look ridiculous and embarrassing, and the baby faces gets one up over them. But at the same time, you can see how, well, that's what a heel does. They want to embarrass the baby face as well. Another thing that they did with Becky Lynch and Bianca that I thought was actually really cool was that they wrapped the Damage Control, they wrapped the steel chain around both of them, and with both of them in the sit-down position with nowhere to go, you see all members of Damage Control do this four-way drop kick, and that was really cool. There were some funny parts like Kairi Sane. She came down marching to the ring, but in a very skipping capacity like this. In fact, if you are a Dragon Ball fan like me, you'll remember there's scenes where the evil Boo, such as the thin Majin Buu, and even I think Super Buu in one of the fillers, he runs across water and he's doing like this. So I thought that was pretty funny. She was in no hurry basically to help her teammates who were dying in there at the point. But I did think it was really cool how Kairi Sane did this sort of spinning back fist, but with the trash can. So I thought that was really awesome. More dynamic issues with faces and heels here is Asuka. So there's a part where she goes to the ring and she's throwing in the weapons such as the kendo sticks, and she even goes ahead and throws in a table, and before that the fans were booing, but when she got that table in, the fans were cheering, were chanting, "Thank you, Asuka. thank you, Asuka. And once again, it just plays the dynamic. Obviously, the table gets one of the biggest spots, biggest pops of the night. Not so much on this night, but it was a huge pop. And this is where, once again, I think that's something better that you would have a babyface do as opposed to a heel. There was even really a cool moment where Charlotte Flair does the moonsault off the steel cage and landed on everyone, and her basically landing on, well, you know what, I shouldn't say everybody, because she looked like she missed the other two women on the side and only the two women that was below her that she kind of caught. But the thing is, this spot, we've seen it with Kurt Angle, and while you definitely could obviously say the Kurt Angle spot was better, this was probably a lot more safer for Charlotte Flair's long-term health, because those spots really jacked up Kurt Angle's knees. And here, at least Charlotte, I don't think will have to have long-term knee problems from the way she executed this spot and how everybody catched her. There was even a really cool spot in the match where Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch embraced, so this was kind of like a really nice emotional moment that they had where the women were burying the hatchet, and hopefully in real life they have buried the hatchet and let go of whatever issues caused their friendship to go down, as they've both mentioned publicly, I think, particularly in the Stone Cold podcast, because let's be honest, both these women definitely have a lot to be proud of when it comes to what they have accomplished here in WWE and what they've done for women's wrestling over the last decade. So I thought that was really cool. Now, the story at the end of the match, that was really good. Basically, Damage Control throughout this match had various points where they were going to lose, yet it was Bayley who constantly kept saving them from getting the pinfall loss, and that was really showing how, like I said, she was truly the MVP for Damage Control, and that means whether she was jumping over, nearly taking off the referee Charles Robinson's head, Michael Cole mentioned that on the commentary, to break up the pin, or even taking a spear from Charlotte Flair by pushing Kairi out of the way. So truly, Damage Control really had someone fighting super hard to keep this thing going, and that was Bayley. Also, towards the end, Asuka goes for the purple miss on Shotzi, which she actually did earlier in the match, and it caught Shotzi, but this time, and I like this little story detail, is that Shotzi remembers, and this time she ends up dunking, and out of the way from her, and from Shotzi going ahead and dunking, you have Bianca Belair use the fire extinguisher, so ironically, Asuka getting hit with the weapon that she brought in, and this takes her and the rest of Damage Control completely out of commission. So then here in the closing parts of the match, we get Shotzi does the senton bomb onto Bayley, and then Bianca Belair does the KOD to Bayley, and then basically takes an exhausted Bayley who has nothing left, pushes her up to Becky Lynch, who then does the manhandle slam off the top rope through the table for the 1-2-3, again getting the victory just like she did last year for her team. And there you go. And you know what? Big shout out to Shotzi, because as I mentioned in my review and ranking videos last year, her and Ronda, though I'm a fan of both, man, their match together just wasn't clicking. But here there was a lot of things clicking, and that was really cool to see Shotzi get that redemption, because you just know she didn't want that match last year to be what her Survivor Series legacy is. So I'm glad that she got a chance to redeem herself, and fans can go ahead and add a really good Survivor Series match to Shotzi's resume. And honestly, just overall, I thought this was a really fun match. It told a story of these women going to war, which is what you want to see in War Games. So hats off to all women involved. A really fun match that I thought was better than last year's, honestly. And at the end, we even get all four baby faces on top of the cage doing the whole tea sipping hand gesture that we would see often Charlotte and Becky doing earlier before all the whole things went down with their friendship falling apart and things like that. And I'm very interested to see where things go in terms of Bayley and Damage Control, because like I said, she was the MVP here. She was the one fighting the hardest to make sure that the team didn't lose until she ultimately was the one. But I think there's a great story to tell, because as I mentioned on the No DQ review when I streamed live with them the previous night before this recording, shout out to No DQ by the way, I mentioned that Charlotte and Bianca, they don't really need the title to be on the line if that's the direction for them to face off at WrestleMania 40. So I think that's perfectly fine having that just be its own standalone attraction match. You can sure go ahead and take Becky and put her up against Rhea for the women's championship, Championship, but I think there's a great redemption story to tell of Bayley going ahead and redeeming herself, becoming a face, winning the Royal Rumble, and taking on and defeating Iyo at WrestleMania. Don't know that, I doubt that's gonna main event, but yeah, Bayley winning the women's Royal Rumble would be awesome. But hey, time shall tell in the months to come.